So hey again, guys, back here with the one and only Mr. Michael Monday. And Mike, I wanted us to talk about systems and creativity, right? Because I know I'm coming from an engineering background, you're coming from a creative background, and we've talked about this. And like you have mentioned to me in the past that you believed, and a lot of people believe, that systems, when it comes to creativity, are not a good thing, right? They
stifle it.
They stifle it, and they can constrain your creative output. Whereas I'm coming from an engineering and a systems background, I'm like, systems are the greatest thing ever. So let's talk about that, because I know you've had a change of mind recently. So talk us through, like, how did this change of mind come about, and what's your belief about how systems and creativity kind of work these days?
Yeah, I mean, I was fully bought into the myth of the kind of crazed genius, creator who had kind of no process and just kind of bounced through life like kind of like a leaf on the wind, and just went, go with the flow and just let it happen. And if you're in the mood, you're in the mood, and when inspiration strikes you, then it's I was fully bought into that at the start of my career, and gradually through my career kind of tended to move away from that, because at the end of the day I had no option but to be creative when I had time to be creative. But I still believed that kind of things like systems were anti-creative. But what I've realized since just through my life is that I was entirely wrong about that, because the idea that systems stifle creativity comes from us ignoring the fact that we have a limited capacity, we have limited resources to deploy at any one time. And those resources, if they are used...
What do you mean by a resource?
Well, okay, focus, energy, time, attention, like literally mental resources required to create a piece of music, for instance, are enormous. And if they are spent,
Gotcha.
If you spend them on reinventing the wheel every time, like starting from, okay, so now, what do I have to do? What am I meant to do? What am I working on? How do all of this? If you have, before you even start, you have to go through that whole process every single time, then you are constraining your creativity. You are using the resources. You're making the same decisions over and over again, where you could actually make these decisions once, put them into a system, and then you are free. It's like you just sit down and you create. You use all of those mental resources to create magic, instead of just like the last 10% of the resources, because the 90% have been, figuring out, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I working on? How am I, that kind of thing. And it's been an absolute, I mean, I think me coming back to making music after having created a system and using it, it's been a complete, the scales have fallen from my eyes, and now I'm okay. System, if you have a system in place to create music, and it has to be a particular kind of system. It can't be a system that is too granular, right? It has to allow for creativity. And that's the key thing, because there are certain types of systems that would constrain your creativity. But if it is
if you're doing everything paint by numbers, I think is what you're saying, that like you're always going to end up with the same result. But
so it doesn't want to be exactly. So it doesn't want to be a system as like, I start with a baseline and I use it and then I do that, and then it's not that kind of a system. It's a more overarching system than that allows for you to be creative in it, but which takes away so many of those decisions that we make again and again and again and again. It just, they are embedded in the system so that you have the freedom to create the magic that is so important.
Yeah. So walk us through, because I know over the last year or so you've been working with a bunch of producers of all levels, and you've been helping them solve the problems that all producers tend to fall into, all the same problems that we all think are unique to us, but everyone experiences them. and you've just been kind of piecing this together piece by piece, and then like the system has kind of emerged from that. So you want to kind of just walk us through how this system developed?
Yeah. So one of the kind of groups of people who I help are top producers. It tend to be people who are DJing, all over the world, constantly touring. So they have virtually zero time, and when they do have time, virtually zero energy and motivation to get in the studio and make music. So the kind of the question that I brought to myself was, okay, so how do I help them make the most music, more music than they've ever made, but not only that, but the best music they've ever made while they're in this situation. So basically, that was where the starting point came from, in helping these people who have virtually zero time and zero energy to do that. And that is where it came from. And then I started teaching this thing to some of my mastermind members. There's groups of music producers who meet every 2 weeks, and both my top clients and my mastermind members started using early versions of this system. And I'd say, well, let's do this, and then come back and report back, and there'd be a kind of feedback process, and then be like, yeah, but I had a problem with this. Okay, so then we'd refine the system. I'd create different, come up with different ideas, and this was a process over, I don't know, about 18 months or something like that, maybe even 2 years. And out of that has come this system, which I've called the automatic music machine, because it is a way of making music in lots of music in pretty much any situation, and also increasing the quality. And I know that sounds like I'm overstating the case, but that's what it does. Somebody said to me the other day on a call, Mike, you've cracked the code. And I was like, do you know what? I actually think, I mean, I don't want to take it all on myself. Like, everybody that I've worked with has cracked the code with me, by actually testing over and over again this system. But it has surprised, shocked even me, what has happened, because I'm using it myself in amongst my crazy life, and it's working like gangbusters. Like, if I compare the way I was making music, and I made a lot, in 17 years, I released 300 tracks, finished probably about 1,000, right? So I made a lot of music during my career, but nowhere near the quantity or the quality of what is coming out now.
Yeah, and I was involved. I think I can remember when we first talked about the early versions of the system, because I'm obviously in your mastermind, and I can remember deploying it and trying it and checking it out and testing it. And the big thing for me was, like, I would constantly bump into walls where I would kind of lose motivation and stop working on stuff, because there was nothing that I was excited about, right? There was nothing in front of me where I would have made a couple of bits and pieces, and I was like, and then I wouldn't find the time to get to the studio. But as soon as I had an idea or a track that did give me that, like, I'm a very busy marketing professional. I've worked a lot of hours around my own marketing agency, and I would find the time even amongst that. Like, I would use the excuse of I don't have time when I wasn't excited about something, but when I was excited about something, I would magically find the time here and there, half an hour. I'd be up till midnight on a track that I was excited about. And the problem was that was infrequent. And then with the system in place, the automatic music machine, like, there was always something to be excited about. And I can remember one moment, there was like this last summer, where I was like at peak work mode, where I was working crazy hours with all campaigns for a bunch of clients. And I still managed to finish like 5 tracks in 1 week. And I was like, what? Like, what is going on here? How is this possible? Because, like, finishing 5 tracks, I wouldn't have finished 5 tracks in 6 years. Never mind 5 tracks in 1 week. So
while you were doing all of this other stuff. Yeah, I mean, while this, everything was going on around you. I mean, what this system allows you to do is work on multiple tracks at the same time and finish them. So when, like if you understand that motivation comes from the process, you don't, it's not the other way around. Most people think I need to gain motivation, I need to be in the mood in order to do the process. No, the best form of motivation comes from the process. But in that situation, if you're working on one track at a time, and we all know what it's like working on one track, it goes through phase. Sometimes you're excited about it, sometimes you hate it. Then you're constantly falling off the motivation, cliff, right? So what you need to do is work on multiple tracks at a time. But the problem is with that is that you can fall into the not finishing anything because you're just constantly cycling through. So what you need is a system which means that you do a machine, a kind of a production line, which means you do finish the music while being able to work on multiple tracks at a time. I mean, I'm now constantly working at 8 to 10 tracks at any one time, and they're all moving forward. But the only way I can do that without getting overwhelmed and losing the plot and not knowing what I'm doing and wasting time just going round and round in circles is because I have the system. This is what I mean by the system set you free. So I always have something that I'm incredibly excited about. In fact, I have multiple. The problem becomes, what do I want to work on now? There's so many things I could, rather than like that. So.
And what's crazy is like, even like, I think when I come from an engineering background and I hear like systems and process and production line, and you tend to think, well, every unit is exactly the same. It comes out like along these closely defined quality measurements of like everything is identical, but it's the complete opposite with this system, because like what is happening, the repeated part of the process is what you need to do to allow your unique style to emerge. Like there are certain things that you need to do, and you need to do them every time to make your best work. But it's not that every track is coming out the same. Like more than anything, I think probably I've had more diverse sounds come out of this system, I know you have too, than any other approach, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, next year, I'm going to be finishing about 100 tracks. I'm thinking about 2 tracks a week is something that is doable while I'm doing everything else that I'm doing. Building this coaching business, helping loads of other people, coaching top clients, and I've got 4 boys under 8 upstairs screaming all the time. So I've got that. I've got all of that going on, and I'm going to finish 100 tracks. And I'm just saying, I'm saying that without, it's like that's fine. But out of those 100, I will be releasing 40, which is an enormous, it's an eye-watering amount of music, 4 albums worth basically, and that is an eye-watering amount of music, but it's totally doable. But you can see this is where the quality control comes in, because 60% of the music that I finish that even makes it through the system, that there are successive levels of quality control. Okay, so that's made it to complete. 40% of that is actually going to make it into the public domain, if you like. And this is how the system allows you to create the quantity, which means that the quality goes through the roof. But none of it would be possible without the automatic.
You're selecting the best, right?
That always at each point you're selecting the best, not in the process. In the process, you're just doing what you've decided to do, but then at another time. But you're only ever selecting the best, the ones to work on and the ones to release.
Awesome. So Mike, if people want to learn more about your approach and the system and how to break through as a music producer in 2019, what should they do? I believe you have a special coaching call coming up to help people.
Yeah, I'm jumping on a call with a few people, and we're going to brainstorm a few ideas for how you can make 2019 the best year of your music production life, your music career. That's how you want to be thinking about it. So if you're interested to have a conversation with me, I'm going to have a group of people. You're going to put your hand up. We'll have a conversation. I'll get a bit of info about where you're at, and we will identify the biggest opportunity for you in 2019, where you want to focus. And in order to sign up for that, basically there'll be a link somewhere on this page, maybe beneath the video. Click that link, put your email address in, and I'll send you all the details of when it is and how to join.
Awesome. I'm excited for that call, Mike. I know I'm going to be on it. So that's great. Cheers for this, Mike. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Talk soon.
Cheers.